We can. Hello. Good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another fireside chat of PAASE for Philippine Innovation. I'd like to greet our special guests who are with us today, and some of them are often in our activities in PAASE. In particular, I'd like to greet Dr. Amri Lobos, Danny Manayaga, my friend from way back, and Tito Aliga is also here. So today, we would like to talk about a very important challenge in our country. And before I say more, uh, because this is a recording, I will just introduce myself again. I'm Gisela Concepcion. I'm a PAASE president, and I am currently serving as an executive member of the National Innovation Council. And I was nominated by PAASE, so I consider PAASE my stakeholders. And so I have decided to uh, host a series on behalf of PAASE. And I am very fortunate to have as my regular co-host Dr. Alvin Culaba, who is the most distinguished professor of De La Salle University's mechanical engineer, also a past president, current vice president for, for the National Academy of Science and Technology. And together, we will introduce our very distinguished, highly esteemed speaker today, Dr. Jurgenne Primavera, who is champion of the environment. And I am happy to let you know that I am here today in Butuan City in northeastern Mindanao. And Dr. Jurgenne, well, also hails from this region and has spent a lot of time in Butuan and considers herself also a Butuanon. And this is a very, very impressive city and part of Mindanao, the Caraga region. So, well, the title is quite long, and it's what country has 7,600 islands plus about 20 typhoons a year along a 36,300 kilometer coastline with less than 1% coastal greenbelt? That seems to be a very disturbing question that Dr. Primavera will talk about today and try to find solutions for those solutions for. So at this point, I would like to turn over the floor to my distinguished co-host, Dr. Alvin Culaba, who will introduce our special guest. Thank you. Marvin, Alvin, uh, Alvin, can you please check your audio? You cannot be heard.
Yes. Hello, thank you, and good morning, everyone. Thank you, Professor Emeritus Giselle. Of course, I would like to introduce our foremost mangrove scientist, not only in our country, but in the whole world. She is an internationally recognized mangrove scientist and currently the Chief Mangrove Scientific Advisor of the Zoological Society of London. Her degrees in zoology and marine science has brought her exceptional scientific contribution that includes studies on aquaculture of marine shrimp with the Seaf Deck Aquaculture department during her working days and science-based conservation of mangroves and beach forest identification and propagation. She has over 170 scientific and technical papers, reviews, manuals, books, and other publications with an H index of 57 and over 20,000 citations. She has given more than 350 lectures and presentations in national and international conferences, seminars, workshops, and including over 45 webinars. In both lectures and popular print media articles, she has focused on her three mangrove advocacies: adoption of a 4:1 mangrove pond ratio, reversion of abandoned ponds to mangroves, and establishment of coastal greenbelts. She was awarded a PhD in Science honoris causa by Stockholm University, elected to the Swedish Royal Academy on Agriculture and Forestry, Royal Belgian Academy for Overseas Sciences, Phi Kappa Phi, and other honor societies. She was named Scientist Emerita of SIFDEC, one of the 30 Time Magazine Heroes of the Environment, and 50 DOST Men and Women of Science in 2008. A University of the Philippines Distinguished Alumni Awardee in Environmental Conservation in 2009, and has been elected member and an academician of the National Academy of Science and Technology, Philippines. Multi-awarded indeed. She is also a Pew Fellow in Marine Conservation. A really good friend, ladies and gentlemen, Academician Jurgenne Primavera. Jurgenne, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alvin, for that kind introduction. And Giselle, how I envy you for being in Butuan, my hometown, which I have not visited in over a year, I guess. So if I may share my screen, and let me see, share. And I go here. There. So this is the topic of my talk, our archipelago, which most of the time looks, well, not really most of the little bit time looks so very nice. But then we have the 20 typhoons a year, and this the title was because I was told to write something that was catchy. So anyway, that's why the long title. But I hope to cover beach forests, mangrove to pond ratios, greenway engineering, and pond reversion to mangroves. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Here we see the super typhoon hitting the Philippines. But this goes back to the early times, no? It's not just recently, even during the Spanish occupation, we already had these typhoons. And of course, the strongest to make landfall in the whole history of the planet was Haiyan or Lana. So with that, I made this table of events that happen along our 36,000 km coastline. Tides, very familiar. Waves, also familiar. But I focused on the storm surge and tsunami because during Haiyan, the radio broadcasters and TV hosts were saying, oh, the tsunami wave is coming. And of course, it was not, because although storm surge and tsunamis, they overlap in wave height of up to 40 meters, they're very different in wavelength. Tsunami is 2 orders of magnitude longer, and also in the physical mechanism, whereas the storms are due to atmospheric pressure variations in the air. The tsunami comes from the earth, from earthquakes. So these two things, you know, the Filipino child should learn these things as early as elementary. They should be taught arithmetic using these data. They learn arithmetic at the same time as mangroves and storm surges. So this is artwork from Vietnam showing coastal protection and the other services from mangroves, which if we look at this 2011 mangrove valuation, shows as much as $9,000 to $11,000 per hectare value. So in some, if not many valuations, that's the top ranking importance of mangroves. And the lower figure shows cyclones, hurricanes, typhoons. They're all the same. They're all storms. But the thing to note is that 30% of them are in our part of the world, in the Philippines. So no wonder that we have all these deaths. And from a Wikipedia table, as early as a half century and more ago, Typhoon Haifong caused 20,000 deaths. And Haiyan supposed to be 6,000, but it could easily be double that number according to locals. And another figure to the right shows the intensity of the storms, the redder being the more intense. And again, the Philippines is right there. And we see that Yolanda cost up to $15 billion in damage, although Wikipedia reflects only $2 billion. But aside from damage, here we have papers that show, the flood protection of mangroves globally. With mangroves, $65 billion per year of damage is averted. But without mangroves, per year, 15 million more persons are flooded. And I guess this would cover, the wicked problem of the Bulacan and Pampanga flooding that was tackled 2 days ago, because also mangroves are there in nature. So, if mangroves do give adaptive service to storms and climate change for that matter, how is this? And this 2012 review paper from Arbor et al. Shows that both physical factors like slope, distance, and so on, but especially biological factors like the trees, size, age, density, can attenuate or reduce or absorb the energy from waves that would cause the damage. And that, if you want to reduce such energy by 60%, you need a 100-meter greenbelt. If you want to reduce by 99%, then it's 1/2 kilometer, but let's stick to 100 meters. Because if we look at the average coastline, this is in Batangas, by experience, about 20 to 50 meters of mangroves. But then we have a balance of 20 to 80 to 50 meters. Where do we get that? For the green belt of 100 meters, the answer is the beech forest. And what is that? Okay, this figure here shows the mangroves and the beech forest right next to each other. And this, I should have slide on the ridge to reef, but actually just to note that this is part of the ridge to reef or H2O, the highlands to ocean paradigm. So on the ground, this is from Negros Occidental. Mangroves are between the high tide and the low tide. Anything above the high tide will be the beech forest, that's supratidal. And we have this in a book with 80 species of trees, beech forest trees. But you don't have to read the book, you just have to look at our coastlines, and I have listed about 50 towns and villages named after beech forest species. In red are the scientific names, but just to highlight Talisay, of course, we have 2,000 places named after Terminalia Catapa. And Banilad, very few Cebuanos know that this barangay of theirs is actually Cerculia fetida, Cerculia ceramica beech forest tree. And in some places, you just have the names of Banago in Negros, that's Especia pupulnea, and of course Manila, which is Cipifora hydrophyllacea. And even some towns have their logos, like the Bangkalan is from Baclea orientalis, Bangkal, and Bogo is from the Ruga floribunda or Bogo tree. So, what are these trees for coastal protection? One species is Gita. And this to the upper right is a Gita tree. The lady is one of 37 who were saved from the floods of Typhoon Ondoy in 2009. By clinging to that tree, so that the local government put some kind of marker commemoration to commemorate the service. Now, how 37 people would cling to a single tree, that's up to you to imagine, but that's what they say. So I guess another species that serves for coastal protection is talukto or Terosimidium. You see below, after a storm in Iloilo, the leaves have fallen. They are going to regenerate. So that's resilience. So if you look at Palawan, the pristine island, the arrow shows the intertidal level where mangroves are located. But above it, we have the beach forest, the supratidal. And to the right, it's all beach forest because this has a very steep slope and mangroves require gentle slopes. But anyway, whether beach, all beach or beach and mangroves, it's the same. You need 100-meter wide belt. It's pure physics, the effect. Unfortunately, most of the country has what? Coconut forests and nipahat forests. And during storms, we know they are not. Coconuts are absolutely not effective. But if you look at the governance, way back in 1975 already, we had all these ordinances for buffer zones. But again, in the Philippines, it's more in the breach than in the compliance, is our sad story. So, you see examples, a few examples of green belts, upper left in Ahui, protecting the ponds inside, and lower left is a plantation in Calibo, and upper right is a beach forest in Vietnam, and lower left is a wide green belt in Thailand protecting the shrimp ponds. So we also saw this with Odette when the mangroves of Siargao protected a great percent of the population, as you can see here. So in the wake of Yolanda in 2014, some NGO members, we crafted a draft coastal greenbelt bill and asked Senator Bam Aquino to sponsor it. The next year, a similar bill was sponsored by Congressman Tocabe, but unfortunately, he was assassinated and Senator Aquino lost the elections. But year after year, for 10 years now, it has been reintroduced but has never been passed. So I'm not very hopeful with the legislative branch of the country. Instead, I have high hopes with the executive branch, but in particular the local governance. During the recent Para El Mar, this is an event twice every 2 years which celebrates, outstanding examples of marine conservation. The province of Negros Occidental was given a special citation for being the first to have a network of local coastal green belt zones. And this is the executive order, spells out that ordinance. And to the right below, we have a list of 10, I think, or maybe 12 cities and municipalities joined in this green belt zone. For example, San Enrique is one of those, and this is their municipal ordinance, which has ABC, and I have magnified this, an inventory of the coastline, the mangroves, forests, fish ponds. Secondly, reforestation of the greenbelt zone, including reversion of abandoned ponds. I will get back to this later, very important. And finally, removal of illegal permanent structures. So the governance is in place. What needs to follow is the implementation. And here, the local governments will need the guidance of academia and research because, of course, it has to be specific, the green belt to each place. And here I'd like to show, this was Alvin and Giselle will remember this. Leyte was hard hit. So this was an islet in Palo, which we visited 2 years after Yolanda, a group of us NGOs, and we talked to the local community, and that's me in yellow, just for proof, and told them that maybe they can plant beach forest trees because the slope is too steep here. You cannot have mangroves. So 6 years after we visited, except that Alvin and Giselle did not go on the book ride. You can see the islet at the back, and when we went, there were all the beach forest trees, the baluk-baluk, And just 6 years afterwards. So this is really proof of concept. It can be done, but why it is not, well, I don't know. Anyway, we have engineers in PAASE, so this is for you that in most of the Philippines, the solution is gray engineering, and many times it doesn't work, as you can see here. So in one of our project sites, that's the ZSL, my NGO, in Ahoy, Iloilo, we had really severe erosion here. You can see up to 2 meters erosion of the trees. We applied a green-gray engineering solution. And okay, since at CSL we're mostly biologists, then we needed to look for the science from engineers. Basically, we bought the science from this engineering firm, and they did all the retrieval of the NAMRIA data, and they measured all the waves for 1 week and so on, and designed this breakwater here, which was vetted. By the way, this was presented to the local community and also to the local government, and they had some adjustments. But anyway, it was built by the local PO, People's Organization, in 2010, as you can see here. And to the left, in 2011, this is from an aerial view, you can see the two breakwaters here and here. And here, a lot of coastline, you can see where the erosion has taken place because of the chopping of the mangroves here. Really severe erosion. And 8-9 years after, to the right, you see the breakwater and you see the mangroves, both planted and natural. Here, lower side, and upper side, this is now solid because this was 2019. 2 months ago we went, and this is now solid mangroves. And in the center, we made a highway for the boats. This is where the pump boats park. No? So we're very happy with this. And I think in many coastal areas, they will need some way to solve the problem of erosion. Anyway, this is from the ground. Again, this is the lower photo will show our recent visit where the breakwaters can hardly be seen. And you see the greenbelt, the mangrove greenbelt of 100 meters. Now the science, of course, from 2010, 2009 onwards, we monitored the substrate elevation. And here, you can see the measurements. And it was a Japanese scientist, Dr. Furukawa, my good friend, who did the initial measurements for us, training our staff, and leaving behind his equipment. Really, it was very nice of him to do this. And this has been reported. It's now in public domain. 2 papers have described this initiative of ours here. And this is available for anybody who's interested. But also, not just in journals, because the fisherfolk do not read scientific journals. So believe it or not, this is Dr. Furukawa lecturing about the project, but with a translator into Hiligaynon, no? These are fisherfolk. And if you remember this guy with the white hair, because here I have boxed in a very critical networking science provided by scientists and the people's organization to implement it. But in between, we have the NGOs that provide the buffer between the science and the people so that it can be understood and implemented. And of course, these are the people's organization, POs in parlance and of NGOs. Here in the planting, and here is the nursery. And if you will know, this person, boxed in yellow, with white hair, he was the president for the longest time. And actually, I like this photo below because here you have the fisherfolk and the scientists together. In memory, he passed on 3 years ago. And so we, ZSL, built a building, Elmer Baviera Center, in his memory and in his honor to replace the nipa hut that we had for a long time. So now another artwork from Palau showing the goods and services from mangroves, which That's art, and this is science. Well, I mean, Science Journal in 2008. A group of us asked the question, if we put together all the uses of mangroves and services, including aquaculture, shrimp farming, what value, what point do we get the maximum value? And this is the net present value in millions of dollars, depending on the mangrove area. And we found that it was at this point, 8 out of 10 square kilometers retained will give you the maximum present value of 16 million US dollars. So that's 80%, or a ratio of 4:1 mangrove bond ratio. So that's a ballpark figure. And if we apply that to the Philippines, at present, we have parity, what we call tabla in so one to one. So obviously, we need to rehabilitate our mangroves, bring back the ratio by planting along the seafront and also on seagrasses, although we do not advocate this, but this is being done. And finally, reversion of abandoned ponds. The classic seafront planting in Camarines Sur in 2013, I think, 1 million mangrove propagules by 7,000 volunteers in 1 hour. You see the 7,000 there. And the propagules, unfortunately, of Bryozophora or Bacau, the wrong species, when the mangroves here we found are Abyssinian maringa. So lack of science. And not surprisingly, a good friend of mine, Dr. Dominic, did quadrat sampling and found less than 2% survival of the 1 million propagules in only 4 years. Of course, wrong species and wrong location, but I cannot explain that anymore. Anyway, lack of science. Because if we look at the three sisters, the three mangrove sisters, the more common mangroves is Tiapi and Petpa, with the roots that stick out from the substrate. In contrast to Bacau, with roots coming down from the trunk. But if we look at the ecology texts, we will see that along the seafront, the Bacau hides behind the Tiapi and the Petpa. It is never seafront. And also here, you can tell from the prop roots. And yet, this is the favorite species for planting because of its availability and convenience in planting. This one is an image post Yolanda from, I think, from Leyte. Very clearly, you can see that the planted Bacau to the right are all dead, whereas the naturally recruiting species of Pagakpat somehow survive. So even just from the images, already you can see what's obvious. But still, the practice goes on. Here you see a lot of Bacau propagules, and here you see it's so small you cannot even see the propagules. So the science is not being applied. Next, we go to seafront planting. The National Greening Program in Bohol. You see very obviously these are planted mangroves on top of seagrass beds. This is in Bohol. But this goes back actually to the 1950s when the local people also planted mangroves on seagrasses. You can tell because this fishing gear is for swimming crabs, for tunids, and they are inhabitants of seagrass beds, not mangroves. So the government just followed the wrong practice of the local community without just checking it out. And this kept us wondering why this is mangrove hectares in the country consistently going down, but all of a sudden doubling. In 2000, where were the new mangrove areas? And it turned out that these were due to the multi-million peso or multi-million dollar mangrove rehabilitation programs that did most of the planting on seagrass beds because there's no more area to plant mangroves along the coastline. So you go out into the seagrass beds. It is driven by money. That's the problem. It is not driven by science, but the need to spend the money given by all the banks. And for banks, as we know, the measure of success is if the money moves. It's not if the plants survive. Never has that been a measure of success for banks. So that is really the sad story of Philippine reforestation. Anyway, our NGO made this poster, stop planting on seagrass beds, what will happen to the dugongs, the sea turtles, and the seahorses. Because this is basically ecosystem transformation, not rehabilitation, because you rob the seagrasses, Peter, to pay the mangroves fall. What an ecological scandal that is really. So lastly, we have seafront planting. No, not seafront. That's what we had first. We have fish pond reversion, which is easily the easiest because mangroves were once, fish ponds were once mangroves before they were cleared. So this is another side of CSL in Leganes, Iloilo. This is the abandoned pond, and we had active regeneration by planting seedlings that were available locally. And in 3 years, we have complete cover here. So it's very easy to revert abandoned ponds. Satellite images in 2005, it was still an operating fish pond, very clean. But by 2009, with Typhoon Frank, the dikes were breached, and you can see the mangrove starting to come in. And this was where we had active planting also. So that by 2014, the local government said, let us have eco park. But before that, again, we see all these ordinances going back to 1990, mandating a reversion of abandoned ponds all the way. But up to now, this is not happening. It's only in our country where it's more in the rules than the compliance of ordinances that we see. So in 2014, the mayor, the one with the star, the late mayor, was so enthused about the healthy mangroves. He said, let us make an eco park. And this was the eco park, a simple eco park made of, LGU funds, NIPA, and bamboo. But it was so successful. There were so many stakeholders, thousands of students were planting. And so they had ownership. And the companies gave donations. So that by 2020, this was a new information center, inaugurated by then, last year, the grandson of the late mayor. Okay, so to protect the legacy of his grandfather, which is good in my view. And here are the volunteer planters, no money for planting, thousands of them, students, NGOs, companies, company staff, and government employees. 120 groups contributed to the planting, including military, religious, educational, even LGBT groups were welcome. So I have my last 3 slides because I think I'm running out of time. Going back to beach forest species, we have not only coastal protection, but they can also be used for ornamental purposes because we have all these beautiful, beautiful trees here that you can see, and beautiful, beautiful flowers. But let me jump to the second, lowland reforestation. I will not cover this. This is just a teaser in the hope that Giselle and Alvin will invite me again because I will need 30 minutes to discuss this. Okay, this is our national greening program. Billions, by now it's really trillions that have been spent of pesos. Billions of trees supposed to be for climate change mitigation. This is reforestation. Okay, but mostly exotic, Swietenia, Macrophylla, and Gentina arborea. No native trees used, very little. So, Speaker Senator Recto, in a privileged speech in 2019, said, where are the 1.7 billion trees in 2 million hectares funded by 39 billion pesos? And he said, DNR should show the forest, the green carpet from sea to shining sea, because that's what you get if you look at their reports. Should show before and after photos, aerial maps, And he reverted to Tagalog. Ano ang dahilan? Bakit hindi nabuhay ang mga tinanim? California like wildfires? Or that by drowning dahil sa lakas ng ulan? Or did trees die by mass suicide? Really, this one, I don't know why it goes on and on. We have the COA reports, but the funding continues. The wrong protocols, the wrong species science is there. NGOs are there ready with the native trees. So here, let's use beech forest trees, and this is my last slide of one beech species, which is my number one species, Miletia pinnata. This was in our book 2007. The leaves, flowers, fruits, and the seeds which I germinated in 2008, the first filial generation F1. I outplanted 2011, the F2 generation. Here you can see here. So in 3 years, you have a new generation. Wow, that's what you need for reforestation, short reproduction. But for family planning, of course, it's the opposite. You need women to bear children much longer. Then by 2015, the same tree, this was 2 meter diameter, here it was already 5 meters. And by 2020, it was 10 meters in diameter, just a single tree with all its daughters below. So this applies to other beech forest species, widespread availability, prolific, early germination, high survival, and early reproduction, really for lowland reforestation. And this one is summary of a study I have done for the last 5 years, which I'm still finalizing now. Because of dispersal of these beech trees, your spacing for planting, instead of the standard 5 by 5, which should require 400 seedlings per hectare, can go up to 25 by 25 meters per seedling because of wind dispersal. And that decreases your seedling needs to 16, only 16 per hectare. And can you imagine, you multiply this by the thousands of hectares that NGP is trying to reforest, even millions of hectares. And this has really great implications. That's why maybe by next year, I hope to have an invitation to present this. And this is why beech forest species are so fantastic as colonizers. They can tolerate sunlight, adequate water, poor nutrients, and therefore they are ideal and not the exotics that NGP is so fond of. So as I say, thank you. I hope you have picked up coastal green belts, beech forest, the 4:1 ratio, green gray engineering, and the reversion of abandoned farms. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jurgenne. It's always very inspirational to listen to you. And you're somebody who works on the ground. It's your life mission, and you enjoy it. And you have a nursery
Yes.
that I will be supporting, right, through the Zonta Club. And, it doesn't take a lot of money, as you have shown me from your budget. And so at this point, I think that being a PAASE member, you must be made aware that we have some limited funds that you could apply for as a project. So maybe let's explore that. Okay, I'm sure though we have a few participants today, there will be a lot of questions, but let me just ask you, how many cases of gray engineering have you been involved in together with our green coastal green belts that you think are highly successful? Because as we know, the government legislators or even the municipal and the LG leaders, they are also very fond of supporting engineering infrastructure. So if that's really effective, then that's really one way that we can put the money to good use. And then that's also a way to get to them, a good conversation, to get a good greening and reforestation program in their localities. And I'm saying this because I am in Butuan. And the purpose of this NRCP stakeholders meeting is to connect our scientists with the LGU leaders here. And MINDA, that's the equivalent or the counterpart or part of NEDA, is also with us. So we're now thinking that the NRCP scientists, who number about 5,000 all over the country, we would reorganize them by regions, and they could really help the LGUs with the priority development programs that would be identified through research projects that would generate data. Okay, so I mean, it's a very exciting and challenging program, and let's not lose hope because nature is on our side. I know we are relying on innovation, but you know, nature just renews itself so fast, as you have shown, and it will select for those where the plantings are done correctly, the beech forests behind the mangrove species, and just flying over Butuan from Cebu. It was very late at night, but you know, this was a major logging area. Am I right? Because it's so rich. Now you see, it's so verdant, it's so dark green and thick, almost like Malaysia in Indonesia. Kasi pag pumunta ka sa Malaysia, sa Kuala Lumpur, parang it's cut through a jungle eh. Pero parang nakikita ko dito ngayon ulit sa bandang Agusan, andyan na naman lahat ng ating vegetation, tapos nandun yung marshes. So anyway, it's a very, for me, very optimistic point of view that I'm sharing with you. So thank you very much, Jurgenne. It's a comment, but then my only question for now is the gray engineering. Okay, and then I yield the floor to our participants in the audience who have questions, surely. Yes.
Okay. Yes. To your question, first sa Butuan, no? I gave this talk, the full talk on the lowland reforestation at an earlier venue, and one of the audience from Butuan, he asked me for a copy of my, which I have to make yet, but really I think it is I don't know what the term is, revolutionary, you know, to reduce your seedling requirement from 400 to 16 per hectare. There's a lot of science that's not being used. So anyway, that's for Butuan. And for your question about gray green, I haven't seen too many, and this is because it's expensive. It's expensive because you need science to put in your whatever breakwater or defense, whatever. You need the science, and so far, the scientists who are doing coastal science are doing it for beach resorts. What does that mean? That's dollar rate. It's expensive, Giselle. That's why not too many LGUs are looking, are consulting experts. But there are two developments that I am very hopeful about. First is with this, if only we could, share this with the League of Coastal Municipalities that have this coastal erosion, and they would be interested. And they commission one contractor, say maybe 5 of them along the coastline, and that will bring the costs down. We paid 300,000 pesos for the construction. You have economies of scale. You need economies of scale to bring it down. And if that happens, then they can afford, and they can put in whatever gray engineering before green can come in. So I'm still looking for the announcement of the League of Coastal Municipalities to invite myself not to share this. But the second development is the Mandanas Garcia ruling. Now, the local governments have, if the money can be released by the national government, of course, I expect there will be a fight, no? But if that is released, the local governments can have up to 1 trillion pesos. And if they have that money, they don't need economies of scale. They can afford the consultants, the beach resort consultants who charge top dollar. No, they can afford that. So, kaya lang, I'm thinking of this, ang tagal lang, ang lag time for it to happen is so long. I get frustrated because I don't have any more time, Giselle. No? You can see with the white hairs on my head. So anyway, sige, any more questions?
Yeah, well, just a follow-through comment. Unfortunately, these mandanas that we have been counting on, Georgine, well, we asked Governor Miklukilia in Leyte about it, and he already told us, and it seems it's true. It's not filtering down. It's not being released because the national
Yes.
government needs the budget or whatever allocated 280 billion for flooding. Hindi naman natin din alam kung saan yung ginamit. Kamukha na sabi ni Senator Recto. O ano ba yung resulta ng 39 billion. Pero, well, it looks like we really cannot rely yet on the mandanas of funding that will be given to the LGUs, sadly. No? So, you have an opportunity here because you're a Butuanon. And here, looks like in this part of Mindanao, the League of LGU mayors, that league is in touch with some of the staff of the NRCP. This is what we're trying to do in the NRCP now. We are flipping the science. We are flipping the science. And we have NRCP connecting with the Congress for some funding. And then we're trying to get this funding to the NRCP researchers who will work on problems that are relevant or a priority to the LGUs. We generate the data, and then we bring this back to Congress, and then we offer ourselves as policy advisors, and then the policy will then become the basis for legislation. So, Georgine, you are an NRCP member, so you can be active in NRCP. Okay? Anyway, so
Sure.
enough. We're always trying to find solutions. We'll never give up until we're, under the ground, right? So, anyways,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask Al Sarafika to ask the first question, and then Sean Raimundo. Or Sean first. Okay, Sean. Thanks.
Hi, Georgine. Congratulations. You're doing a great job for our mangroves. I just want to ask you whether you have the people from La Union and from La Union, and there was an NGO there doing some mangrove planting. I told them to contact you. I wonder if they ever contacted you and if they were successful in their planting there, because I think they needed some experts there. Did you hear from them?
Unfortunately, hindi. And unfortunately, the state of mangrove rehabilitation in the country is really shown. I'm very sad to share this with you. It's budget driven. As I said, hindi siya science driven. So yun na naman yung Rhizopora propagules, which is the wrong species. Ang taas ng mortality rates. But if they survive, doon naman sa seagrass beds, pinapatay naman yung seagrasses. Nakakalungkot yun kasi they went ahead. The government and the NGOs went ahead with the money that they got. Nakalimutan, naiwanan yung science. Sige lang, kasi the focus with the governments anyway is on moving the money. That's what banks are for, to move money. Never mind if the seedlings all die. So malungkot, no? So, Sean, sorry, hindi.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, well, I will not make a comment yet or again, no, at this point. Are there any other comments? Now, Al is raising his hand. Al, yes.
Yeah, thank you, Georgine, for always making us aware of what needs to be done on the coastline. I go to our beach house in Matabungkay, and we have a mangrove forest right in front of the property, about 300 meters. And we've been trying to protect it from development and subdivisions is popping up all around Matabungkay. And we're up in the mountains seeing all the destruction. So unfortunately, we can't do anything about it. It's not our property. And clearly, my question is actually how to connect the rehabilitation to income generation. Kasi at the end of the day, we need to tell our supporters, funders, LGU, backers, that if you rehabilitate your coastline with mangroves, behind it you can have a crab farm, or behind it you can have a more viable multi-trophic fish farm that can generate this amount of income. Is there a model that we can cite that they did the rehabilitation and then they followed it up with economic generation that we need to kind of illustrate so that not only that they see the value coming from COP28 funding, but also the economic viability of this particular endeavor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. First, yung matabungkay, no? Siguro in the 1960s, I was an undergrad. Doon kami nag-field trip. So I remember that place, may mangroves doon. I think sa audience natin, wala pa yung iba dito sa audience, very young. So long time ago. Anyway, the question is, can profit be worked into the model of rehabilitation? First of all, let's look at the mangrove, the kind of mangrove, no? In most of the Philippines, ang fringing mangrove is narrow. So you cannot allow for other developments, like say a fish pond. It's just so narrow. You need it, all of it, for the coastal protection. But even then, even with just the mangroves, wala nang already the fisher folk. We're thinking about the fisher folk who are the de facto managers. Sila ang de facto managers of the mangroves. No, they're the ones on site. Already they will have coastal protection. They will have fish, no? They will have food security. Kasi many times, fisher folk told us, pag bumagyo, they cannot go out to the laut, no? So they just go to the tidal flats. In Cebuano, it's manginhas, kinhason, the shellfish during low tide. That's food security for the fisher folk. So if we look at the components of our society, hindi yung middle class, no? Hindi tayo, kundi yung the poorest of the poor there. That is their food security. That is their coastal protection. So also with our POs, what we call people's organizations, we help them to organize, and especially with the programs from government needing seedlings, mangrove seedlings of the right species, no? Yung api-api. Then they have the mother trees there, then they can go into nursery, mangrove nursery. So that PO that we had, that I showed you in my slides, after Yolanda, they did not wait for funding, for aid from the government, kasi they had 1 million in the bank, 1 million pesos from their members, selling all these seedlings. So that's one, where you don't have to build a fish pond. Another is eco park also. In other places, when the mangroves are healthy, hindi nga malaki, no? Like in the case of Leganes, ang liit pa ng mangroves, but they built an eco park, and that one can also provide income for the members. If they cater, no, to the visitors, they provide the food, and they also act as tour guides, so they earn so much, or they can have boats to go around the mangrove. That's also an income. Now, in the case where you have really a wide mangrove and you can have fish ponds, medyo iba. It's challenging kasi capital it's capital. It depends on capital, and iba ang takbo, the dynamics. So I think we now in the NGO community, we are busy building a valuation table. So we have 3 columns. One is if we keep the abandoned ponds, if we revert them into mangroves. Another is if we renovate them into fish ponds, and another is there's a salt bill coming up if they are converted into salt. We try to evaluate and compare the values of all the 3 alternatives for the abandoned pond. But I think yung multi-trophic, that's very challenging, and I have seen in last week's conference that I attended, it was applied to subtidal, no, seaweed, yung multi-trophic seaweed farming, and then you have invertebrates and ganon. So I know also about that integrated multi-trophic, and it's very challenging kasi you apply your ecology there. So yun lang. Oh, and lastly, very important yung tenure. No, your people's organization should have some kind of tenure over the mangrove, so they are, encouraged to really take care of that mangrove. Kasi meron silang no, they can harvest without damaging the trees. Ayun lang.
Thank
Sorry,
you,
Giselle, medyo
Jurgine.
mahaba.
Definitely, I think your answer is already spot on. The eco park aspect is one of the options that I've been wanting to do. So one of these days, I'll probably invite you and Giselle, and maybe hopefully eventually get DNER, CP, and Sectoni to look at possibly how do we do the mechanism of an eco park to keep the remaining. There's still about probably 10 hectares of mangrove in front of us. So the 100 hectares behind the mangrove is now developed into a subdivision by Santa Lucia. I think we need to kind of preserve that. And again, I will probably need to consult you and involve PAASE to be able to even PAASE sponsored eco park in front of our property. We have a good location there, and I think we need to look at some models that can be sustainable, that the farmer, the fisher folks around there. And there's also beyond the mangrove, kasi there's another 250 meters of low tide seagrass area that has been very productive for indeed mga shellfish. They pick up every twice a day when it's low tide. They all pick up the pole at saka they make, I mean, it's probably at any given time mga 20, 30 people picking up stuff. So we need to look at that ecosystem, how to preserve it one of these days. Thank you for your info.
Giselle, one ano lang, Giselle. I forgot to mention, kami sa ZSL, all the things we do, we have manuals. We manualize, no, para ma-disseminate. So manual on mangrove rehabilitation, on fish pond reversion. Our latest 5th manual, I think, was on how to establish a mangrove eco park. So if you will write me, Al, I can hopefully send you a copy on nandun,
I will.
no,
I will.
from
I'll check
A
it out.
to Z, how to.
Very good. Thank you.
Well, actually, the theme of our Fireside Chat series is innovation. And early next year, I think there will be a call for proposals. And we're trying to formulate the guidelines for this call for proposals and for the granting system. And I am advocating open innovation. Then that relaxes the definition of innovation. And aside from the economic returns or the ROI, you also think of ROV, return value. And well, the way I think about it, Al, is if you have this potential site in Matabungkay, then that's close enough naman to Batsu. So Batsu is in Batangas City, but it has different branches. And there's already a marine group that is working in Batsu, and they are from MSI. One of them is my PhD graduate. So there have been several proposals for multi-trophic agriculture in mangroves. One was submitted by Irene Rodriguez of MSI in the Bicol area. So kung may know-how ba, meron actually sa MSI. And before the multi-trophic strategy, there used to be this plan for a sea cucumber ranch. Sea cucumber lang, high value yan no? And that plan was being considered when we visited this very long mileage of mangroves in Quezon, of Dr. Olveda, his private property. Unfortunately, Academician Remy Olveda passed away, but I know his only son, no? Pero magkasama kami noon ni Dr. Gomez, ni Perry Alino, and then we were thinking that, the optimal size of a sea cucumber ranch would be about 40 hectares. You know, the water in mangroves is, you might say, semi-brackish, but it's very nutrient rich. Okay, and this is where I come in, Jurgenne, where our research overlaps, because I do mangrove research as well, right? because we're looking at the shipworms, the tamiloks that feed on the mangrove wood, and we're looking at the bacteria that are, symbionts in the gills of these mangroves. But what the shipworms also have are the cellulitic enzymes. So they're a major mechanism for the transfer of nutrients of carbon from terrestrial to these mangrove niches. So very rich siya. And then meron rin siya mga nitrogenases, itong mga itong mga shipworms na ito, no? So it's really a very, very rich marine water for aquaculture. So it's just a matter of trying to get, say, the first viable project funded. But you need a souk that is located in that area. So if you're serious about this, I mean, let's contact that soon. Okay?
I was just with Tirso Ronquillo a week ago. So,
Yes, exactly.
so I can ask
Magugustuhan
him.
mo yan. Marami siyang funding, ha? Okay.
I'll propose it.
I
Thank
really
you.
I really want to help Jurgenne, find a way to just nationalize this, no? Kasi very frustrating nga ang nangyayari sa ating greening and reforestation program, no? And there's a little or no science at all in how it's being done. And I was involved in one planting of bakaw. I told you, Jurgenne, no? Zonta Club.
Yes.
Ako, kinuha yung mga propagules from DNR. Binayaran 10 pesos each. Tapos merong photoshoot na parang itatapos doon. 10,000 yung nag-gather. Hindi ko alam kung paano, ano yung logistics doon sa pagtatanim noon. Doon kami nag-photoshoot doon sa, meron namang mangrove trees. Hindi naman local. I mean, it's parang, wow, just photo face value, no?
Pakitang tao lang yan. Pakitang tao.
So, oo talaga. Oo. Para lang isip na merong ginagawa pero hindi naman talaga naiintindihan. Yan ang problema sa ating bansa. Anyway, so, Jurgenne, thank you very much. Every time you make a presentation, there's always something new. Meron kang new results, meron kang new photos. Tapos, sabi mo, satellite images. Pero remember in Palo, nag-drone na si Marvin, yung biasing ni Alvin, di ba? Yung ibang photos natin doon, galing sa kanyang drone images, no? Okay, so yun, dapat puntahan, balikan talaga ulit ang EVSU. Okay? Sige. Any other comments and questions from the floor, from among our participants? I don't see any more raised hands. Remember that this talk, as all other talks in this series, these talks are recorded. And now we have this message. It says, Read provides AI-generated meeting summaries to make meetings more effective and efficient. View our privacy policy at this link. So, Feb, maybe you can, look into this. Magamit natin ito for the summaries. Tapos, lalagay natin ito dun sa ating as captions to our video in our website.
Michelle, one last lang, no? Kasi nagko-converge yung IMTA ni Al at saka yung sabi mong, kulang ng focus ang fisheries natin, kulang ng support on this small fisher folk. Nasa fish pond at nasa fish pen, capital intensive yun. And the commercial fisheries, of course, no? And may konting municipal. Pero itong, what the IMTA and then the sea ranching, where you need, importante kasi it weds aquaculture, no? The production of seedlings, of juveniles, and also environmental conservation, because this, whatever, yung sea cucumbers at kung anong i-release mo dyan, they need a clean environment. So sabi mo yung mangroves, branches, but the water is clean. Yun ang importante, no? And it is only the fisher folk, the local communities that can do that. You cannot get a big company to protect a site for stocking the sea cucumbers. So ito din yung equity, social equity comes in. So I hope more development of the IMTA and yung itong small fisher folks and environmental conservation along the coastline. Kasi this is how we can really serve the majority of our people, the low income.
in Butuan. And dito seryoso sila with Minda, okay? Seryoso talaga sila to make it right, no? So ang ating approach dito ngayon is diretso muna sa LGUs. And hindi naman lahat ng LGUs, yung talaga lang siguro magse-select tayo ng pinakamahusay at seryoso. Okay? So we have to try it this way also. Okay, and then we have to rely on the researchers who are based here, say in Caraga State University or Agusan University of Science and Technology. Pero malaking impact mo dito kasi taga dito ka. Paniniwalaan ka nila. You are there. Okay? O sige. So, maraming salamat ulit to everyone. And maybe Feb, we can just do away with posting the three types of documents that we want to share with everybody because in a matter of a few months siguro lalabas na talaga yung guidelines for innovation grants. Okay, now as we say, you are always free to write a position paper. UPRV Tito is free to submit a position paper, and then if you can share with us your experiences on barriers to innovation, very much appreciated. Meron kasi mga survey there's nothing like having a first-hand account. So yun ang gusto ko rin ma-capture para tayo nag-FTG on other barriers to innovation aside from procurement. No? Okay, so anyway, Danny Maniaga was here a while ago, then he left. I'm sure he just wanted to test how this thing goes because he's our next speaker. Next Friday, Danny will talk to us about indigenous feedstock sources for renewable natural gas. Danny's been around in the biotech block for decades, and he was a major supplier of imported equipment, Secura, in the early days. And then he's tried many things from moringa to, I even visited his farm in Jingoo where we had this airing, which is a polyclonal antibody against rabies. Pero hindi yun masyadong, parang premature for his time. He was working with RIM. But now he has this very viable, native project on indigenous stock for natural gas. And then the last for this year is December 15. Is the woman country director of Waves for Water Philippines, Jenica Dizon Mountford, and she was recommended to us by Carlo Delantar, whom I also wanted to invite, okay, because he's now a venture capitalist, but he himself was into water. He's an innovator on water catchments. He'll probably give a talk next year. As you will again, Jurgenne, you're always invited to give talks here and anywhere else. You never say no. And every time you talk, you have something new to share with us. Okay,
Sure.
So I hope that everybody joins us and just share this. Huwag naman tayong magsawa dito. Hindi ako magsasawa because I love, I have this thirst for knowledge. Okay, I want to know more than less. No? Okay, so, I won't discuss this anymore, these three papers, but just keep this in mind. Anything at all, speak out your mind and send us your thoughts on, barriers to innovation and your ideas on innovation itself. No? Okay, so with that, I'd like to thank everyone again for joining us. And I'm sorry that Alvin is not here with us because he's at an event where he's giving awards. He's in a hotel. So he's a super busy guy. He's busier than me. So he's always traveling and he's always invited as a VIP in events. So thank you very much, everyone. And let's just keep the fire burning and, we support one another. Thank you so much. Good day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.